Welcome to Kathryn Raaker's World. Innovation, culture, adventure, fashion and health, artists, destinations, traditions. This is Kathryn Raaker's World.
Hi, this is Kathryn Raaker of Let's Just Talk, our syndicated radio show, and Kathryn Raaker's World, our syndicated TV show. I have the honor of having the guest today is Caitlin Connors, the Southern Regional Director of the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. Caitlin is a native of Birmingham, Alabama, graduated from the University of Alabama, where she served as the chair of the college Republican chapter. Her involvement for the pro-life cause stems from her Catholic faith and began early in life by attending multiple trips for March for Life. Following graduation, she moved to Washington, D.C. and began working with the Susan B. Anthony List in February of 2016. During her time with SBA List in Washington, D.C., she served as a political coordinator and political director. And Caitlin moved back to Alabama with her husband Fletcher and their baby boy, Hugh, and now serves as the Southern Regional Director in this capacity. Caitlin focuses on political and legislative affairs in Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, and West Virginia. Welcome to our show, and thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you, Kathryn, for having me. And I'll give you a little update. I also have baby number 2 here now. So we have Vera. I realize I need to update that bio. She'd be so disappointed that her name wasn't on my bio. But yeah, so I have 2 kids and we're in Birmingham, Alabama. And so I've been both political director for Susan B. Anthony and also now a legislative director where I work on pro-life legislation in our southern region. And so it's an honor to get to do this work. And I'm grateful to you for bringing a voice to it and covering this issue in a truthful way.
Well, you know, it's so important for people to be educated about, you know, what pro-life is, what Planned Parenthood became and why it happened. So let's, if you don't mind, talking a little bit about pro-life. So let me ask you, you had to be very brave to march in the pro-life in DC. Tell me why you really wanted to be a very big part of it and why, because you're so young, that you can educate people easily.
Well, listen, I mean, the life issue, I think you referenced my Catholic faith. So truly, it's always been inherent to me, how I was raised, to believe that life begins at conception and that all life is precious and a gift from God. So certainly that's always been my inherent belief. But as I've gotten older, I've unfortunately seen the extreme nature of the other side on this issue, and where, you know, maybe there was a point in life where I could say I'm pro-life and I want to vote for people who are pro-life. I felt like maybe I had the luxury of being a little more passive about it until I saw just how extreme and to what lengths the other side will go to promote and really demand abortion. And so there really, in my mind, wasn't, you know, an opportunity not to speak on this. And so taking, you know, what I'm able to do through political work, through legislative work, and try to move the needle here to, one, really educate people, as you say, on what it means to be pro-life. Of course, that means we want to save every unborn life possible. We want to pass laws that protect life and really uphold the sanctity of life. But it's twofold as well. And anybody who knows, has known anybody in the pro-life movement, has spent any time getting to know those who have dedicated their life to this cause, know that we also care deeply about the women and the families who are affected by abortion. We want to serve moms in need. We want to walk with them in their time of need. And states across the country have really stepped up to the plate really for years and years, but certainly kind of in turbo drive, I would say, since the Dobbs decision, and taking an assessment of what their state offers, whether it is something that's through the states, but also engaging their communities and faith leaders. There are so many things out there available to women in terms of funding, helping them through our pregnancy centers that offer such incredible work to these women who are dealing with unplanned pregnancies, and really meeting their needs. And so the pro-life movement has always been saving lives and serving moms. And that is really something we have to educate people on, because unfortunately the narrative and the Democrat platform on this is to always say that we don't care about women, that we don't care about these babies once they're born. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And anybody who spent any time within this movement or getting to know somebody in this movement knows that that's not the truth.
So let's ask what you do for moms, and that from the very beginning, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I always like to point to our pregnancy centers. There's a plethora of things, but I really like to point to their work because they're on the front lines with these women. They're in these communities. They are seeing women who are really dealing with a truly scary time in their lives. They're pregnant, maybe their partner is encouraging them, coercing them to get an abortion. Maybe their family is saying, you have to fix this problem, and they don't know what to do. We know that the majority of women want to keep their baby. They don't want to choose abortion. And in fact, upwards of 60% of women have said that if they knew that they had some sort of financial support or emotional support during their pregnancy, that they would have chosen life, that their preference was to choose life, and they felt backed into a corner. That's where our pregnancy centers really shine, because they're there. They have the baby boutiques, of course, to offer those material needs like formula and diapers and baby clothes, maternity clothes, car seats, all those essentials that you need to get started in your parenthood journey. But they're also with these women throughout pregnancy. They're giving them counseling. They're giving them some financial support, helping them with housing. If adoption is part of their plan, helping them go through that process. They are there to help them get on their feet, find jobs, go through resume training and things like that. So I have to brag on them. And a lot of our states have embraced what we call alternatives to abortion programs, where they offer some funding to those pregnancy centers or other life-affirming entities like maternity homes, who are providing housing for women during their pregnancy if otherwise they might be homeless. And making sure that they're cared for, or adoption agencies or foster care agencies, who we know that there are many babies born who do end up going through the adoption process or have to be placed in foster care. What are we doing to make sure that those systems are operating as best they can? And there's a ton of work left to do. I would be the first to say that. But a lot of our states, especially our pro-life states, are really, really stepping up to the plate to offer those services, to engage with the churches who are providing things like food pantries and counseling and women's groups and childcare, all of these things that are necessary for parenting, right? I'm a mom of two myself. I know childcare is really important. I know having reliable transportation is really important, and obviously a roof over our head. All of these things are requirements. And we, time and time again, know that those are the three major categories that women face when they're going through an unplanned pregnancy and they're trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? And the truth is, we have so many people out in our communities who want to help them put that plan together.
If people realized how many babies were killed ever since Margaret Sanger started Planned Parenthood, and, the weird thing about this whole thing is that she didn't do it for reasons that were good reasons. She wanted to change what the world looked like. Am I right?
Your preferred lens, right? Yeah, the Planned Parenthood marketing we hear today about bodily autonomy and women's reproductive freedom, those have been polled and tested, and they feel like those are good messages. So they use euphemisms like that to disguise what it is that their business is really about, and that is pushing abortion for any reason whatsoever. They're not interested in counseling women. They're not interested in hearing about them wanting to choose life. They want to prescribe one thing, and that is abortion. Unfortunately, to your point, yeah, their founder, Margaret Sanger, has a insidious past. Her thoughts, essentially being a eugenist, wanting to kind of create a world that, again, was appropriate to her lens, and anyone who she deemed to be undesirable, abortion could be the answer to eradicating. That is such a disgusting worldview, and it doesn't get the attention it deserves, that an entity like Planned Parenthood, that our tax dollars go to in an egregious way, and who then have campaigns that they fund for pro-abortion candidates across the country, is founded by a woman who wasn't interested in women's health care at all, like they like to say now. We were talking about this a minute ago. Even recently, as of a couple years ago, they were still holding their highest honor award, the Margaret Sanger Award that they give annually. They were still naming it after her, even when it was so evident that she was a eugenist, that was her philosophy in life. So the PR of that situation finally caught up to them, and I think they give that a award by a different name, but people like Hillary Clinton are recipients of that award. And then we have our sitting vice president who goes and tours abortion facilities. The first vice president in the history of our country, while in office, going to visit and tour abortion industries where, as they were speaking, lives were being taken and women were being pressured into terminating their pregnancies, especially when we know that they would have preferred to choose life. The Democrats have one prescription for women facing unplanned pregnancy, and that is just to get rid of their problem. They aren't interested in helping these women. They're not interested in counseling them. They're not interested in bringing life into this world. Certainly not. They want to push one thing. It's a profit industry for them through Planned Parenthood. Our tax dollars go and pay for it. And it's just a really horrific situation, from its founding to where we are now, with the extremism from the Democrat Party pushing for these policies.
And it's really sad to see that they had 27 abortions or something like that at the DNC convention. And on top of that, they were also doing vasectomies for men in another one of the buses. Now, what did Hitler want to do? He wanted to do the same thing to the Jewish people, and he didn't care. So the philosophy of both of them, is that they wanted to just have a perfect race. And who did they target? African Americans first, and then all the other minorities. Am I correct about that? I think I am.
Well, it's true that minority populations are, more inflicted with abortion than white populations. Certainly, you look at where abortion clinics tend to be located; it's in inner city locations, and they say, that pro-life laws really harm women of color. And what I would argue is that the abortion industry has plagued these populations and pushed one solution to them, and have not ever tried to address the issues that might face the community, but rather just say, here, get your abortion and come back next time if you need us. That is what their business model is. And I don't think, it's hard to argue that. You look at Planned Parenthood's own stats on the amount of abortions they do, and annually it creeps up higher and higher into the 90th percentile. So when you have this argument that they're about women's health care, their own numbers say we are an abortion business. That is our prescription for whatever your situation is. And we encourage you to do that, or even coerce you to do that. We've heard stories time and time again about women who go into an abortion clinic truly unsure of what to do, just kind of in a a paralyzed fear. I'm pregnant and I didn't expect to be, and now I don't know what to do next. And unfortunately, if they're behind the doors of a Planned Parenthood, they are going to be pushed into getting an abortion.
We're going to take a short break here for a minute, and we'll be right back with Caitlin Connors. And she is the Southern Regional Director of the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. We'll be right back. You know, we're back with Caitlin Connor, Southern Regional Director of the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. You know, during the debate, I couldn't even hardly watch it, to be honest about it, because there's a new phrase now, the salad of Kamala Harris. I don't know where she gets her information, but there's no state in which abortion after birth is legal. Am I correct?
So that was a false statement made by Vice President Kamala Harris in the debate. And you're right, Kathryn, I sat and watched the whole thing, and there were times where, gosh, I really was tempted to turn it off. It was hard to watch in parts. Unfortunately, as she said that was not fact checked by the debate moderators. And in fact, there are no laws preventing what we would call the Born Alive bill, which is something that we have advocated for. Many states have passed, but in fact, 15 states have not. One of those is Minnesota, where Kamala Harris's running mate is currently the governor. And the Born Alive Protection Act is very simple. It says that if a baby survives a botched abortion, they should be given the same medical attention under any other circumstance that a baby was born at that period in time. This is where President Trump has brought up in multiple debate settings the story of the previous governor, Governor Ralph Northam in Virginia, where he's talking live on radio about what that looks like in the room in real time. And he paints this picture of a baby who was born, who was intended to be aborted, but it didn't work. That baby was born alive. And so they're going to keep the infant, quote, comfortable. And then a conversation would ensue between the doctor and the parents. That is pretty insidious. And I think it really shocks the conscience. I think most Americans cannot believe, one, that is true in this country, and two, that it would be legal. And it is really hard to wrap our minds around it being legal in this country to allow a baby who was supposed to have been aborted, who fortunately made it, who was not killed, and then not to render healthcare to them. A colleague of mine, Jill Stanek, has a very famous story. She was a nurse in a Chicago area hospital, and she witnessed this firsthand. A baby who was intended to be aborted. He had Down syndrome. Was probably around 21 or 22 weeks old, and he was born, he was alive, and he was sent to a utility closet to die. She saw him. She held him for 45 minutes while he was in this world so that he wouldn't be alone. But his story is not the only one of these stories.
Right. Gosnell is a real, isn't
yes.
Gosnell? I hate to interrupt you, but isn't
that's
Gosnell?
okay.
Everybody should see Gosnell. Go back and watch it. And then you will really see what happens. I mean, that man needs to be in prison for the rest of his life, that doctor.
I hope that he is. The Gosnell story is really horrific. And it is the movie talks about the abortion clinic that he had in the Philadelphia area, where he was doing late-term abortions, leaving babies who were still alive around the clinic, who was offering incredibly subpar would be a nice way to put it, care to these women. And he has been arrested for this. It is ironic that while the debate happened in Pennsylvania, in the Philadelphia area, only miles away is where this clinic existed, where Kamala Harris is sitting here trying to tell us that late-term abortions don't happen. And we're in the neighborhood of Gosnell's clinic. And it goes unfact-checked.
It's unfact-checked is right. I mean, I think education is the most important thing we can do, Caitlin, to stop this. because if a baby is born, even before that, it's murder. I don't care what anybody says. And when you murder a baby after it's born, there should be a law that they go to jail for that.
Yeah, again, it's truly remarkable. I think your average American isn't aware that this happens. And if they become aware that it happens, they cannot believe that it would be legal to do this in our country, in the United States of America. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around. And this is the kind of work I do every day, looking into things like this. So, you know, the extreme nature of the other side, what they are proponents of, abortion throughout pregnancy for whatever reason and taxpayer funded, that is not where the American people are on this issue. Many Americans may say that they're pro-choice, but when they hear what the pro-choice definition is, according to the Democrat Party, that is not where the American people are. And so it's a huge obligation for us to educate on this issue, to really bring awareness that when they are talking about reproductive freedom and bodily autonomy, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about late-term abortion. They're talking about absolutely no restrictions. They are talking about taxpayer funded. They are talking about stripping away safety regulations for abortion clinics. The people who say that they care mostly about women's health and reproductive freedom and bodily autonomy don't want abortion clinics to have to follow any sort of health and safety standards. They don't want any sort of thing getting in the way of the abortion industry. And so it's quite transparent to see, you know, where their allegiances lie. It's not for women's health. That's a great marketing tool they've been able to use over the years, that they care about women's health. What they care about is abortion and promoting abortion and coercing abortion. And that is their bottom line. It's how they make their money. It's how they maintain their relevance in society and where they get their political clout. And so there really should be no bones about it, what Planned Parenthood is, what they do. And the politicians that we have promote, primarily on the Democrat side, of course, who are pushing that agenda, know full well what it is that they're advocating for. And the American people need to be fully aware of what that is.
The weird thing that really amazes me is that with the pill now, with the abortion pill, they're sending it in the mail to kids. Kids get it. And what happens to that child if they take that pill and it goes the wrong way?
The abortion drug issue is of such consequence. It is really terrifying that our FDA has decided that being reckless is an option here, and not putting any sort of guardrails around abortion drugs. We know that complications from these drugs are regular. We know that women can order them, or girls, to your point, can order them online. And there are a lot of states that have laws that say you cannot mail in pills. But there are other states who are passing laws that protect the doctors who ship them from their state. It is an egregious practice. We know that these pills are dangerous. We know that a lot of times women get these pills in the mail. They don't have very much directive on what to do with it, what to expect with it. And the complication rates are super high. If you are going online and you're ordering these pills, you're not probably exactly sure how far along in pregnancy you are. You're not supposed to take the pills past, depending on what the FDA says most recently, but around 10 to 11 weeks. You're not supposed to take the pills after that point in time. Well, quite frankly, most women don't know exactly how far along that they are, myself included. When I went through my first couple of ultrasounds with both of my pregnancies, I was off by about half a week, and I was paying close attention. So for women who find themselves in an unplanned pregnancy, they might not be entirely sure how far along in their pregnancy that they are. We also have to rule out things like ectopic pregnancy. The complication rate for taking abortion pills when you have an ectopic pregnancy skyrockets. And the only way to know that you have an ectopic pregnancy is through an ultrasound. That has to be done in person. There is no online ultrasound, right? So when they're getting these pills online, they're not giving clear directives on how to take them, what to do, or what kind of complications they may face. what other considerations they need to have. Maybe their blood type could be a consideration. Their future fertility is a consideration. None of this information is given to these women, and it depends. I mean, there are sites that of course these pills are being shipped from overseas. There's even less regulation over that. It is a mess. And again, for an industry that insists that all they care about is women's health care,
Right.
to have this as their product, this is what they provide to women. It is disgusting. It's egregious. And for any policymaker to be able to look at us in the face and say that they care about women's health while they also support this is lying. And it's something, it is so heartbreaking to see stories of women taking these pills, of, these situations where they're scared, they don't know what to do. They find some website where they can order the pills. It's an additional consideration to make when we have such a crisis with other drugs coming in across our border with fentanyl and things like that. You don't truly know what you're getting in an unmarked box coming in the mail from overseas. I mean, the amount of ways that it could go wrong are so high. And it's plaguing on these women who are in a desperate situation. And instead of offering them, hey, we want to help you in your situation. We want to help you figure out, what is your plan? Do you need employment? Do you need housing? Do you need childcare? Do you need material assistance? Do you need transportation? These things, there are multiple entities in place at the state level and at the federal level to help women on their journey through pregnancy, and to get them in a good position. And the other side, again, only wants to prescribe abortion to them. They say, well, it's too much of a burden to have children, or they can't afford it. Well, instead of looking at ways to make life more affordable, they just say, abort your baby. Or maternal mortality rates are so high, it's not safe to carry a pregnancy till term. Okay, instead of looking at the reasons why maternal mortality rates are so high, prescribe abortion. They are of a one-track mind. Any problem that a woman might face during pregnancy, instead of trying to solve that problem for her and for the many women that are going to face that, just have an abortion. That's their philosophy. That's their mindset. And it's disgusting. And we know it's not good for women. We know it's not what women want. And we know it's not what the American people want either. When educated on this, when they really hear the facts of the situation and the position of the Democrat Party, they are not aligned.
I want to thank you. We've run out of time. I'd love to have you back. I didn't get to talk a lot of the stuff that we needed to talk about, but you know what, Caitlin,
Yes.
You are a warrior. I am too. I want to educate people, especially women and men, what happens really with an abortion situation. Absolutely. There's other ways. Pro-life gives everything. And they don't charge these women, do they?
Yeah, most of these services at pregnancy centers, the things I've detailed that the pregnancy centers do, they don't charge women. There are a lot of state programs that exist free of charge to these women, because that's the point. We're trying to help them. We're not trying to add any other obstacle in the way. We want them to choose life. We want them to feel empowered to choose life as well.
And thank you so very much for joining me today on Kathryn Raaker's World, our syndicated TV show. And let's just talk. Where can people go to get more information?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathryn. SBA, as in Susan B. Anthony, prolife.org has all of our information, our most recent press releases. You can see that letter you referenced that Marjorie sent to ABC demanding they fact check some of the more egregious things that were said at that debate. Our political efforts are there. Some statistics from our research arm, Charlotte Lozier Institute, about abortion drugs and the dangers there. It's a one-stop shop. So sbaprolife.org.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful, blessed day.
Thank you, Kathryn.
You're welcome.